on one of the most exclusive streets in Paris, a boulevard where foreign ambassadors live behind iron gates, and where a single apartment can cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. Jeffrey Epstein kept a door that no one was supposed to open. Behind that door, according to testimony given under oath in a United States federal courtroom, young women, some of them girls, were brought from modeling agencies, promised careers, and subjected to abuse. The French authorities knew about this apartment for years. They knew who owned it. They knew who visited it. And for more than a decade, they did nothing. Stay till the end, because one document filed in a New York courtroom connects this Paris address to a network that stretched from the fashion runways of the Champs-Élysées to a private island in the Caribbean. I'm Mark Epstein, and this is the Epstein Files. The address is 22 Avenue Foch, in the 16th arrondissement of Paris. Avenue Foch is one of the widest and most prestigious avenues in the city. It runs directly from the Arc de Triomphe toward the Bois de Boulogne. The buildings along it house diplomatic missions, billionaires, and old European money. And in one of those buildings, Jeffrey Edward Epstein maintained an apartment that, according to court testimony and French investigative reporting, served as a base of operations for his activities in Europe. To understand why this apartment matters, you need to understand one name: Jean-Luc Brunel. Brunel, born on November 30th, 1946, was a French modeling agent and talent scout. He founded and ran multiple modeling agencies over decades, including Karen Models in Paris and MC2 Model Management, which was based in Miami, Florida, and which, according to financial records presented in court, received direct funding from Jeffrey Epstein. Brunel and Epstein's relationship dates back to at least the early 1990s. Brunel appears in Epstein's Black Book, the personal contact directory we discussed in episode 10, with multiple phone numbers across Paris and Miami. But Brunel's reputation was troubling long before his name was ever linked to Epstein. In 1988, years before the Epstein connection became known, the CBS television program 60 Minutes aired a segment investigating allegations that Brunel had sexually assaulted young models. The segment, which aired on December 18, 1988, featured multiple models who accused Brunel of drugging and assaulting them. But here's where it gets disturbing. Despite those public allegations in 1988, Brunel continued to operate freely in the modeling industry for more than 30 years. And at some point in the 1990s, he became one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest associates. And the Paris apartment on Avenue Foch became a nexus point where the worlds of high fashion and sexual exploitation converged. Court documents from the case of Virginia Giuffre versus Ghislaine Maxwell, case number 15 CV07433, filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, contain some of the most detailed testimony about the Paris apartment and Brunel's role. Virginia Giuffre, formerly Virginia Roberts, stated in her depositions, portions of which were unsealed in 2019 and 2020, that she was trafficked to the Paris apartment on multiple occasions, beginning when she was approximately 16 years old. She testified that she was directed there by both Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Giuffre testified that Brunel brought young women and girls, some of them foreign nationals who spoke little English, to meet Epstein in various locations, including New York, the United States Virgin Islands, and Paris. She stated under oath that Brunel would bring what he described as girls from Eastern Europe and South America who were seeking modeling careers. According to Giuffre's deposition, some of these girls appeared to be younger than 16. During the trial of United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, case number 20 CR 330, Southern District of New York, which ran from November 29th through December 29th, 2021, prosecutors presented evidence about the pipeline between modeling agencies and Epstein's network. While Brunel was not a defendant in that trial, his name surfaced repeatedly in testimony. Witnesses described a pattern in which young women were recruited under the guise of modeling opportunities and then subjected to abuse. The financial connection is critical. Court records and financial documents presented during various proceedings indicate that Epstein invested in Brunel's MC2 Model Management agency. According to reporting by the Miami Herald, and confirmed through financial records referenced in court filings, Epstein provided funding that helped establish and sustain MC2, which operated out of Miami and had connections to agencies in New York, Tel Aviv, and Paris. Now, if you're still here, it means you can handle the truth. So let me show you what they didn't want you to see. The Paris apartment was not simply a residence. According to testimony and investigative reporting, it functioned as part of a network of properties, each serving a specific purpose. In Episode 7, we discussed 9 East 71st Street in Manhattan. In Episode 9, we covered 358 El Brillo Way in Palm Beach. The Paris apartment on Avenue Foch served as Epstein's European hub, a location from which he could access the vast and largely unregulated world of international modeling, where young women crossed borders constantly, and where exploitation could be disguised as opportunity. What makes the French connection particularly significant is the length of time it took for French authorities to act. It was not until August 23, 2019, more than a month after Epstein's arrest at Teterboro Airport on July 6, 2019, and 2 weeks after his death on August 10, 2019, that French prosecutors announced the opening of a formal investigation into Epstein's activities on French soil. The Paris prosecutor's office, led at the time by Remy Heitz, opened a preliminary inquiry into charges including rape and sexual assault of minors. French authorities searched the Avenue Foch apartment in connection with this investigation. According to reporting by French media outlets, investigators found materials consistent with the patterns described in American court filings, though the specific details of what was seized have not been fully disclosed publicly. Source: French media reporting, August to September 2019. Exact inventory requires verification from French judicial records. Jean-Luc Brunel was eventually arrested by French police on December 16, 2020 at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, as he was preparing to board a flight to Dakar, Senegal. He was charged with rape of minors and sexual harassment. Brunel denied all allegations. Source: French judicial authorities' public statement, December 2020, AFP and Reuters reporting. And then, on February 19, 2022, Brunel was found dead in his cell at La Santé prison in Paris. Pause. He was found hanged. He was 76 years old. French authorities ruled it a suicide. Source: Paris Prosecutor's Office confirmation, February 19, 2022. Multiple international wire services. I want you to hold that fact in your mind. Jeffrey Epstein, found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan on August 10, 2019. Jean-Luc Brunel, found dead in his cell at La Santé prison in Paris on February 19, 2022. Both awaiting trial. Both facing charges that could have compelled them to testify about the network. Both deaths ruled suicide. Pause. This is not conspiracy. These are official records from 2 different countries, and the questions they raise have never been answered. But this is where the official story falls apart. Pause. If the French connection was as extensive as court testimony suggests, if young women were being moved between Paris, New York, Palm Beach, and the Caribbean, then this was not a one-man operation. It was not even a 2-man operation. The logistics alone, international travel, visas, housing, money, required infrastructure. And that infrastructure, according to court records, was partially funded by Epstein himself. Source: Financial records referenced in SDNY and SD Florida proceedings. The flight logs, subpoenaed manifests from Epstein's private aircraft, covering the period from approximately 1995 to 2013, document numerous trips between the United States and Paris. These logs, which were entered into evidence in multiple proceedings, show passengers traveling between Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, Palm Beach International Airport, and Le Bourget Airport in Paris. The logs list passengers by name, and Brunel's name appears on multiple entries. Source: flight logs entered as evidence in cases 08-80736, CEV, and 15 CV07433. Document cloud: Epstein flight logs. During the Maxwell trial, prosecutors argued that Maxwell was instrumental in creating and maintaining the aura of legitimacy that surrounded Epstein's operations, including in Paris. The jury convicted Ghislaine Maxwell on December 29, 2021, on 5 of 6 counts, including sex trafficking of a minor. She was sentenced on June 28, 2022, by Judge Allison J. Nathan to 20 years in federal prison. Source: PACER, Case 20, CR 330, SDNY, DOJ press release, June 28, 2022. But here is the question that no court has answered. How many people in the Paris fashion and modeling world knew what was happening? Brunel did not operate in a vacuum. He ran agencies with staff, bookers, photographers, and clients. The modeling industry in Paris in the 1990s and 2000s was a world where very young women, sometimes 14 and 15 years old, were routinely sent alone to foreign countries with minimal oversight. It was, by multiple accounts, an industry that looked the other way, and Epstein and Brunel exploited that culture of silence. Source: 60 Minutes, 1988. Broadcast: Maxwell trial testimony, investigative reporting by Miami Herald and French media. The financial settlements that followed offer their own form of testimony. In June 2020, Deutsche Bank agreed to pay $75 million to settle claims that it had facilitated Epstein's sex trafficking by maintaining his accounts and processing suspicious transactions without adequate oversight. In September 2023, JP Morgan Chase agreed to a $290 million settlement with Epstein's victims for similar failures. Source: Deutsche Bank settlement, court filings, 2020, JP Morgan settlement, case 22, CV 119, SDNY, September 2023. These banks processed the financial transactions that sustained Epstein's global operation, including the funding of properties, agencies, and travel that connected New York to Paris and beyond. Arjun, so let me ask you this. Pause. A man with a $77 million Manhattan townhouse, a Palm Beach estate, a private island, a ranch in New Mexico, and an apartment on one of the most expensive streets in Paris. He funds modeling agencies. He employs a known predator as his European scout. Young women and girls are moved across international borders. Multiple victims testify under oath about what happened behind those doors. And for more than 20 years, not one law enforcement agency in France, not one, brings a single charge. Pause. The investigation that France finally opened in 2019 came only after American prosecutors acted, only after Epstein was arrested, only after the story became impossible to ignore. The apartment on Avenue Foch sat in plain sight for decades. The door was never kicked in. The questions were never asked. And now, the two men who could have answered them, Epstein and Brunel, are both dead. What remains are the documents, the depositions, the flight logs, the financial records, the testimony of survivors like Virginia Giuffre, who put her name on the public record and said what happened to her in that apartment, in those rooms, in that world. Her words are in federal court filings. They are matters of public record. And no amount of silence from the powerful can erase them. The powerful bury the truth, but paper has a longer memory than power. If this episode opened your eyes, hit subscribe and the bell icon, because every file matters. Comment below. Why do you think it took France over 20 years to investigate? I read every single one. Share this before it disappears from your feed. Next file. We go to the island. Little St. James. The flight logs that show who went there. And the construction records that reveal what was built and then demolished before investigators could arrive. I'm Mark Epstein, and I'll see you in the next file.